Hey guys, tonight we drift back to a world that wakes before dawn, where your day begins not with an alarm clock, but with the slow toll of church bells cutting through a misty chill. You blink awake in a room so dark you can't tell where the beams end and the shadows begin. Your breath fogs the air, your blanket feels like burlap, and outside, somewhere beyond that crooked shutter, a rooster is already convinced he runs the entire village. You probably won't survive this, at least not before breakfast. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while you're at it, tell me in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is for you right now. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You rise before the bells finish their echo. The air is cold enough to sting, and the straw mattress creaks like it's whispering complaints from the previous 10, probably a cousin or a chicken. You fumble for your shoes, little more than stitched leather, and pull on a coarse wool tunic that smells faintly of smoke and last week's rain. It's still dark, but you're not alone in the world's first waking moments. Across the landscape, monks are already chanting their matins, a kind of spiritual alarm clock that few villagers actually asked for, but everyone hears. The church bell doesn't tell time, it makes time. You shuffle toward the door, tripping over the family dog, which is both a guard and a heater. In most peasant cottages, warmth is borrowed from life itself. Animals sleep inside, tucked near people for heat. It's not charming, it's survival. Historians still argue whether peasants actually minded this arrangement. But honestly, when you've survived 6 winters in a drafty hut, you probably stop being picky about who snores next to you. Outside, dawn hasn't quite happened yet. The horizon glows a hesitant gray, and the damp earth squelches beneath your feet. The smell of smoke, mud, and manure is strangely comforting, nears the perfume of normal life. Somewhere in the distance, a blacksmith coughs his way into consciousness, and the faint clang of a hammer reminds you that time moves not in hours, but in chores. If you're a farmer, the day starts before the light arrives. You head toward the fields, scythe in hand, your stomach growling but your will steady. The dew on the grass soaks your shoes. It's nature's way of saying, "Congratulations, you're poor." You stop to mutter a short prayer, habit as much as hope, and watch your breath twist away in the cold. If you're lucky enough to live in town, you might be a craftsman or apprentice. You wake to the rhythm of hooves on cobblestones, a cart rolling toward the market square. The town smells of baked bread, human waste, and yesterday's ambition. There's an odd beauty in that mixture, like the scent of progress trying to bloom in the mud. The baker's oven is already glowing. You catch a whiff of something that might be heaven, the first loaves of the day. For most, bread is the centerpiece of every meal, and its importance borders on sacred. A shortage can trigger riots or worse, taxes. In the monastery, a different kind of mourning unfolds. Monks rise in silence, their bare feet brushing cold stone floors. They chant in Latin, words most villagers can't understand, but somehow trust. The air smells of candle wax and ink. Some monks have been awake since midnight, copying manuscripts by flickering flame. It's tedious work, but imagine being one of the few people alive who can actually read. You're half saint, half nerd. You, standing outside in the mist, have simpler goals. Feed the animals, light the fire, survive. That's the rhythm of most lives here. No weekends, no vacation, just the endless turning of the seasons. A quirkier tradition, though, says that roosters weren't the only creatures marking time. Some medieval people believed cats could predict dawn by the way their eyes reflected light. It's not true, of course, but try telling that to the villager who swore his cat woke him precisely before sunrise every day till it got eaten by the neighbor. You pass the church on your way to the fields. Its bell tower looms like a watchful giant. The sound of the bell isn't just about prayer, it's about control. Who rings the bell decides when people rise, work, rest, or mourn. It's the medieval version of a smartphone notification, except there's no Do Not Disturb mode. You can ignore it, but everyone will notice. Inside, the priest is already busy muttering over the altar. He's been up since the third watch of the night, his hands trembling slightly from the coal door, perhaps from the ale he had for warmth. That's not gossip by the Wade's daily life. Wine and ale are safer than water in many places. Even children drink it, though theirs is watered down. Historians still argue whether medieval people were constantly buzzed or just hydrated creatively. Back home, your family begins to stir. Someone pokes at the hearth, coaxing life from last night's embers. The smoke curls lazily, staining the ceiling black. The first light slips through the cracks in the shutter, illuminating a table that's more scar than wood. On it sits a loaf of bread, a knife, and not much else. Breakfast isn't a meal, it's a reminder that you're still here. You break the bread, share it with whoever's awake, and dip it into a thin ale or watered porridge. The taste is plain, but your stomach is grateful. If you're lucky, maybe a sliver of cheese made last week and already flirting with mold. The children eat in silence, still half asleep. You look at them and think of how each morning feels both the same and utterly uncertain. Somewhere beyond your little home, nobles are waking too, but their mornings look different. They rise to the murmur of servants, two scented linens, and embroidered curtains. Yet even they must face the cold stone floors, the draft creeping through the windows, the same sun that doesn't care about titles. Beneath the crown, mornings are as mortal as yours. There's something oddly soothing about these early hours. The world feels smaller, more honest. You hear everything: the crackle of fire, the soft bleating of goats, the faint sound of hooves in the distance. It's the kind of quiet that modern life forgets to make space for. And yet, for the medieval soul, this quiet is survival, because once the village fully wakes, so do its demands. A rooster crows again, louder now, as if to remind you that time is slipping forward whether you like it or not. You stretch your back, grip your tool, and feel that old ache in your shoulders. It's not just Panette's proof. You belong to the world's oldest club, people who get things done before breakfast. By the time the first rays of sunlight brush the thatched roofs, the village is alive. Smoke pours from chimneys, hens scatter, dogs bark, and a few children chase each other through puddles. The sound of human life rises like a hymn. Somewhere, a woman hums a song while grinding grain, a tune so old it's probably older than her grandmother's bones. Music isn't entertainment here. It's rhythm, it's hope, it's how the soul keeps count of the day. As you shoulder your bundle and head toward the fields, you pass your neighbor, a man with 3 teeth and a grin big enough for 5. He nods, spits, and mutters something about the weather being good enough to live through. That's optimism, medieval style. And then there's the sky-wide, gray, and endlessly patient. It's the same sky above monasteries, castles, and cottages. It doesn't care who you are, only that you keep moving beneath it. You look up for a moment, letting your thoughts drift between the clouds and the smoke, wondering what secrets the day will hold. Because under the bells, the chants, and the chill, life hums with a quiet mystery, one that every dawn tries to explain, and every dusk keeps to itself. You step forward, feeling the earth breathe beneath your feet, and realize that this, right here before the world fully wakes, is when the Middle Ages feels most alive. The bread crust cracks between your fingers. Warm in the center, rough on the edges, and you wonder how something so plain manages to taste like triumph. This is breakfast, if you can even call it that. Just bread, maybe a smear of lard or cheese if yesterday's market went well, and a sip of weak ale to wash it down. The ale, oddly enough, is safer than the water. Rivers and wells can be unpredictable home to more than fish and frogs, so you drink the frothy, yeasty stuff with quiet resignation. It's not a party, it's plumbing. Across the room, someone mutters a morning blessing over the food, not out of piety, but habit. Faith is the air people breathe, here automatic, necessary, invisible. You chew slowly, staring at the uneven table, its surface etched with years of knife marks and stories. The smell of smoke and baked grain fills the tiny space, and for a fleeting moment, it feels almost cozy if you ignore the draft coming from that hole in the wall. Breakfast in this world is political. Not in the modern Twitter argument sense, but in the quiet way that what you eat and when you eat, it reveals who you are. Peasants like you eat early and simply, out of need. Nobles, on the other hand, often skip breakfast altogether. It's considered a little crude to eat before midday, unless you're ill or hunting. To eat in the morning is to admit hunger, and hunger is far too common for those pretending to live above it. In monasteries, though, things get more structured. Monks follow strict rules about when to eat, what to eat, and even how to chew. Yes, there's a recommended rhythm for chewing. During Lent, meat disappears from their plates, replaced by fish, beans, and an astonishing variety of bread. The medieval diet is more diverse than people think, but also more monotonous than they'd like to admit. Historians still argue whether the Church's fasting rules made people healthier or just hungrier in more creative ways. You glance down at your crust and try not to envy the smell drifting from the manna kitchen nearby. Nobles dine differently, their breakfast trays a quiet rebellion against religious modesty. Spiced wine, honeyed oats, sometimes even roasted fowl if they expect guests. You can almost hear the soft clink of silver spoons behind those heavy wooden doors. But don't envy them too much. The rich suffer their own curses. Constant indigestion, gout, and a diet that tastes like victory but feels like punishment. Outside, the village begins to stir in earnest. You step out into the damp morning air, the sound of hooves echoing from somewhere near the road. The Lord Steward rides through the settlement, checking who's at work. He doesn't say much, just nods. But everyone feels the weight of his passing. His cloak flaps behind him like a small banner of authority. You nod in return, keeping your face neutral. In this age, too much friendliness looks suspicious, and too little looks like rebellion. Nearby, two women gossip over the communal oven where bread from several homes bakes together. The air is thick with smoke and stories. Someone whispers that the miller's wife has been adding extra flour to her share. Another says the priest's new candle holder looks suspiciously French, possibly gifted from a merchant passing through. Gossip isn't just entertainment, it's information currency. The marketplace later will hum with it, traded as freely as fish or flax. Breakfasts like these aren't just about food, they're about identity. What you eat tells others who you pray to, how you work, and how close you are to ruin. Even the shape of your bread can reveal secrets. The rich bake round loaves. The poor bake flat ones. In a bad harvest year, you might mix ground acorns or beans into the dough to stretch it further. Some villagers even use clay ovens shaped like helmets, heating them with twigs, then sticking dough to the inner walls. The smell of scorched crust becomes the scent of survival. A quirky bit of trivia: medieval people sometimes flavored their ale with herbs like rosemary or yarrow. Not for taste, but to balance the humors. They believed the body contained four fluids: blood, phlegm, yellow, bile, and black bile. Too much of one could ruin your day or your destiny. So yes, that mildly bitter drink you're sipping is technically medicine. Whether it works or not is another debate entirely. One historians still love to argue over after too much coffee. You sit back for a moment, watching smoke rise lazily through a gap in the roof. Breakfast is almost done, and you're already thinking about dinner. That's not greed, it's instinct. Food scarcity is a constant specter here. Even a good harvest can vanish under rain, rot, or rats. Every crumb feels temporary. So when people eat, they do it mindfully, not because they're spiritual, but because waste is unthinkable. At the manor, things look deceptively peaceful. The lord and lady dine at a long table draped in embroidered linen, their servants hovering like shadows. The fire crackles, and the air smells of cinnamon and butter, luxury spice and a costly fat. Cinnamon comes all the way from Ceylon or Egypt, passing through dozens of hands and inflated prices before reaching this table. It's not food, it's power dust. When a noble sprinkles it over porridge, they're basically saying, I own ships and probably your future. You imagine sitting at that table for a moment. The silver gleams, the bread is soft, the ale is rich and dark. But there's tension even here. Who sits closest to the Lord? Who carves the meat? Who gets the last slice of cheese? Every motion is political choreography. One wrong glance, and suddenly you're out of favor or worse, out of employment. Beneath the candlelight, everyone's pretending to be relaxed while calculating alliances between bites. Meanwhile, back in the village, a child chases a chicken through the mud, laughing. Someone calls after him, and the morning hum continues. Life here feels simple, but beneath that simplicity lies a complex web of rules. Even the act of sharing food carries ritual. A host must always offer guests the best piece, even if it means going hungry. It's part hospitality, part insurance policy, because next week you might be the hungry traveler knocking on someone else's door. Your hands smell faintly of grain and smoke now, the scent of your class and condition. You watch the sky brighten, golden light brushing the rooftops, and realize how quickly the morning moves once the chores begin. You wipe your mouth, tuck the last crumb into your pouch, and stand. The bread gave you enough energy to work, but not enough to waste. There's no luxury of fullness, here only fuel. A rooster crows again. This one sounds older, angrier, as if he's sick of repeating himself. You grin quietly, shoulders heavy, and start walking toward the main road. Around you, the sounds of tools and voices rise in a low symphony, the heartbeat of survival. Somewhere behind you, a dog barks. Somewhere ahead, the market bells will ring soon, calling the next act of daily life into motion. It's strange, though. As you walk, you can't shake the feeling that breakfast means more than just eating. It's the first moment of the day when everyone, peasants, monks, nobles, participates in the same ritual. The bread might be different, the table fancier, but hunger is universal. The ale might vary in strength, but thirst is shared. In a world divided by class, faith, and fortune, breakfast is the one secret bridge between them all. You glance one last time toward the manor on the hill, where smoke curls gracefully into the sky. You imagine the Lord taking his final sip of wine, adjusting his velvet sleeves, and preparing to ride out. Then you look down at your own hands, rough, cracked, honest. The same sun touches both pairs of hands. The same air fills both lungs. And though your breakfast was simpler, maybe it tasted more real. With that thought, you square your shoulders, adjust your tunic, and head into the light of a world that never stops reminding you of its hierarchy, but also never stops surprising you with its small mercies. The smell of bread still lingers on your fingertips as you walk away, a reminder that even the humblest meal carries the quiet politics of survival, gratitude, and defiance. Beneath the crown and candlelight, everyone starts the day the same way, with hunger, hope, and a bite of something that keeps them human. The crumbs from breakfast cling to your fingers as you step out into the morning light, and now that your stomach is half full, your mind starts to wander toward appearances. You catch sight of your reflection in a puddle, mud-splashed, wind-tangled, and slightly smoky, and you laugh quietly. Nobody in the Middle Ages has the luxury of looking flawless, but everyone, from serf to queen, still plays the same eternal game. How do I appear to others? You brush the dirt from your tunic and realize it doesn't help much. The wool is thick, itchy, and dyed the color of whatever was cheapest. Natural dyes make fashion a complicated affair. If you're a peasant, your clothes are made of undyed wool, maybe tinted with onion skins or walnut shells. Nobles, though, they're walking rainbows. Deep blues from indigo, scarlet from cochineal, gold from saffron. Colors speak louder than titles, and the church even tries to police them. Some sumptuary laws dictate that only the wealthy may wear certain shades, as if moral worth could be measured by pigment. You tug at the sleeves of your rough tunic and keep walking. The fabric scratches your skin, and you can smell the faint tang of sheep. It's the scent of honesty, or maybe just of poverty. Still, there's comfort in it. That same wool once kept a living creature warm through the winter, and now it does the same for you. Nothing is wasted here. Even scraps of cloth find new lives as bandages, rags, or makeshift toys for children. Around you, villagers are already moving about, and every outfit tells a story. The blacksmith's apron is crusted with soot and iron dust, the baker's tunic dusted white like an early snowfall, the miller's wife in her patched gown, a walking quilt of years. And yet, there's pride in every stitch. You notice how carefully people mend what they own. A peasant's needlework might not be elegant, but it's stubbornly alive. You pass a woman hanging laundry, her arms strong from work. Steam rises from the wet linen, catching the light in a ghostly shimmer. You nod a greeting, but she's too busy scrubbing to reply. Laundry is a battlefield here. There's no soap, as you know, it's just lye, ash, and elbow grease. Sometimes, people even use stale urine to whiten fabric. Yes, you heard that right. Medieval dry cleaning smells worse than the clothes it cleans. But it works, mostly. Historians still argue whether that trick was more effective or simply more tolerated out of necessity. Either way, you can't complain. You've washed your tunic in river water more times than you can count, and the river never judged you for your scent. Speaking of scents, let's address the nose in the room. People didn't smell like roses and fresh laundry back then. But they weren't the walking disaster modern myths make them out to be. Most villagers wash their faces and hands daily, and a full body wash happens whenever the weather and the river permit. In cities, there are even public bathhouses, though their reputations vary wildly. You can get a hot soak, a haircut, or, depending on the establishment, a moral crisis. It's a one-stop shop for hygiene and rumor. You, however, take the modest route. You cup cold water in your hands and splash your face until the chill bites your skin awake. The water runs down your neck, trickling beneath the collar of your tunic. For a moment, you feel almost new. Then a gust of wind blows, and you remember why people wore so many layers. Hair is another matter. Men keep it practical, cropped, short, or tied back. Women braid theirs intricately, winding ribbons or bits of cloth through four-color. A noblewoman's hair can take hours to arrange, sometimes stiffened with egg whites or scented oils imported from far-off lands. The result? A headpiece so elaborate it could double as a small birdcage. Peasants, on the other hand, simply want to keep lice at bay, a daily, humbling struggle. One fringe belief claims that shaving the head invites bad spirits to nest in your thoughts. So many prefer combing and herbal rinses instead. Rosemary, lavender, or vinegar. The Middle Ages holy trinity of good enough. As you walk toward the market road, you catch the whiff of something sweet. Someone's burning rosemary to ward off illness. The air smells faintly medicinal, smoky, and ancient. It reminds you of the strange superstitions woven into cleanliness. People believe bad smells carry disease, so towns often try to fight stench with stronger stench perfumes, herbs, incense. The logic is questionable, but the effort is impressive. Monks even record recipes for scented hand-washing waters made of rose petals and wine. You can almost hear them muttering over copper pots, turning hygiene into alchemy. The truth is, people here spend far more time thinking about cleanliness than the legends suggest. It's not vanity, it's defense. Fleas, lice, and sickness lurk in the cracks of daily life. You know that too well. You once watched a fever sweep through the village, taking half the children before the harvest came. Ever since, mothers keep sprigs of lavender near the cradle and sprinkle vinegar on the floor when someone coughs. It might not cure anything, but it smells like hope, and sometimes that's enough. You scratch your arm absent-mindedly, feeling the rough weave of your sleeve. The tunic has faded over the years, but it's still serviceable. When clothes wear out, they don't die, they reincarnate. Old garments become lining for new ones. Torn pieces patch elbows and knees. Even noble wardrobes followed this rhythm, though the cast-offs usually end up sold to servants or traveling peddlers. One man's ruined doublet is another man's Sunday best. And oh, the silent judgments those clothes carry. A clean hem might win you respect. A frayed cuff might earn a sneer. You remember once walking into the local tavern wearing a borrowed cloak that looked too fine for your station. The stares were immediate. Everyone assumed you'd stolen it or worse, married into bad decisions. In a society obsessed with hierarchy, clothing is language. Every thread says who you are, where you belong, and how close you dare stand to the line. Even scent can betray you. The rich dab ambergris, musk, or rose oil to mask the stale air of castles that never breathe. You, meanwhile, smell of soil and smoke a kind of honesty no perfume can buy. Some might call it rough, others would call it grounding. It's the smell of work that keeps the world turning. And beneath it all, there's something strangely equalizing. No matter how much perfume you pour over medieval life, everyone still sweats. By midday, the sun climbs higher, and you find yourself passing the manor's washing yard. A line of servants beats fine linen against wooden boards, the rhythm sharp and steady. They gossip while they work, laughter spilling out like water. Even among nobles, laundry day is the great social equalizer. Silk or wool, everyone's clothes eventually get dirty, and someone must deal with it. The difference lies in who holds the soap bucket. You think about your own small wash tub at home, patched with tin and perpetually leaky. It's funny how even flaws have history. Every dent tells a story, a moment when something broke but wasn't abandoned. That's the medieval spirit in miniature. Mend, reuse, endure. Later in the day, you spot a traveling merchant rolling into the village with bolts of cloth draped over his cart. The fabrics shimmer faintly, impossibly smooth. Silk from the East, he claims, traded through Venice, carried on the backs of camels and dreams. The villagers gather around, half curious, half skeptical. Nobody here can afford it, but everyone touches it anyway, letting their fingers glide over a piece of the unreachable world. You imagine what it must feel like to wear something so soft it makes you forget the weight of your own skin. Then you laugh, shaking your head. Softness is overrated. Warmth is survival. Still, part of you can't help but dream. That's the funny thing about the Middle Ages. It teaches you to admire beauty, even when you can't possess it. As evening approaches, you wander past the churchyard and hear the bell again. Its tone is steady, familiar, almost comforting. You realize it's not just calling for prayer, it's marking the slow rhythm of daily transformation. Every toll signals another moment closer to the night, another chance to wash, mend, or change what you can before the darkness folds the world back into its shadowy self. You catch your reflection again in the well's surface. The light's softer now, the air cooling. You notice the faint smudge of ash on your cheek, the fray at your cuff, the stubborn spark of life in your tired eyes. You smile to yourself. Beneath the grime and wool and whispers, there's a strange dignity in simply enduring. Because in a world that measures worth by fabric, smell, and rumor, your real armor isn't what you wear, it's how you wear it. You turn from the well, the last glow of daylight gilding the thatch roofs, and begin walking toward the square, where new voices and new secrets are already waiting for you beneath the crown and candlelight. The market greets you before you even see it. You smell it first, the sharp bite of onions, the sweetness of honey cakes, the iron tang of blood from the butcher's stall. Then comes the sound, a layered hum of haggling, laughter, and the occasional goat protesting the price of its own future. You follow the noise through narrow lanes, boots scuffing against cobblestones, slick with yesterday's rain. The village square opens before you like a living tapestry woven with people, colors, and the faint chaos of barter. The marketplace is the true heart of medieval life. Here, everyone meets under the same patch of sky. Farmers, bakers, tanners, friars, beggars, and occasionally, someone pretending to be all four. Money exists, but barter still rules the day. You might trade eggs for onions or wool for a tin pot. You quickly learn that smiling doesn't lower the price, but gossip sometimes does. You wander past a fishmonger, shouting the virtues of his catch, half of them still flipping in the basket. The smell makes your eyes water, but it's the perfume of livelihood. Behind him, a woman arranges herbs. Thyme, sage, rue. She whispers that rue keeps away curses, which might be useful if you owe the wrong man money. Historians still argue whether people truly believed in such charms or just enjoyed pretending they worked. But the line between faith and habit is thin as thread here. You pause to watch a child chase a chicken between stalls, while the child's mother yells words that sound suspiciously like a prayer and a curse combined. The chicken wins, as usual. You laugh quietly, blending into the crowd. Above you, colorful pennons flutter from wooden poles, faded by sun and rain. They mark the day as fair day, a time when traders from nearby towns arrive to sell exotic goods, salt, spices, and sometimes scandal. A group of men in heavy cloaks cluster near a wagon, exchanging coins that flash briefly in the light. You look away. Deals here can be as slippery as the fish they sell. You approach a bread stall, admiring the neat rows of loaves dusted with flour like snowfall. The baker is a wide man, with forearms like loaves themselves. Fresh from the oven, he boasts, still warm from the fire. You nod, hand over a few coppers, and catch a whiff of smoke and yeast that makes your stomach sigh in relief. He leans closer and mutters, "They say the tax collector's coming next week. Better eat well before he arrives." You smile, chewing the soft crust, pretending not to feel the weight of that sentence. Taxes aren't just numbers here, they're survival mathematics. Pay too little and risk a fine. Pay too much and go hungry. It's a delicate balance, one everyone learns to dance. A bell rings from somewhere near the center. You turn and see a small crowd gathering around a traveling peddler who's climbed atop a crate. He's selling Miracle Steiny bottles filled with glowing liquid, claiming to cure headaches, heartbreak, and hangovers alike. One sip, and your troubles vanish, he declares, as if speaking from divine revelation. A skeptical man asks, "Then why are you still selling it?" The crowd chuckles, the peddler deflects with flair, and coins still fall into his hand. People here know better than to trust easily, but they also know that hope, bottled or not, keeps the world turning. Nearby, the tanner's stall exudes a smell so powerful it could peel paint off a cathedral wall. You grimace as you pass. The tanner nods knowingly, he's used to that reaction. Leatherwork is vital but unpleasant. Hides soak for weeks in vats of urine and bark, softening into usefulness. It's grim, smelly labor. Yet without it, no one has belts, shoes, or the dignity of a decent pouch. You silently thank the tanner, from a safe distance, for keeping civilization together by sheer nasal courage. As you wander deeper, the market grows denser, louder. You brush shoulders with strangers whose lives briefly touch yours and then vanish again into the current. A friar ambles through, clutching a basket of apples. He greets people kindly, though his eyes seem to weigh their souls as he does. You've seen that look before. It's half compassion, half inventory. Religion and commerce dance together here, sometimes gracefully, sometimes like mismatched partners. And then come the whispers, the true currency of any market. You hear them drifting like smoke. Someone claims the miller's son was seen sneaking into the priest's orchard. Someone else swears the Lord's steward has been selling grain behind his master's back. Each rumor is a seed planted in hungry soil, and by evening it will have grown into a full-grown tale. You learn quickly to listen, but not to repeat. Still, there's a thrill in it, the hum of lives intertwining. secrets, half-traded glances exchanged. The marketplace isn't just about buying things, it's about belonging. Here, a peasant might laugh with a merchant, a knight might flirt with a brewer's daughter, and nobody pretends not to notice. Beneath the noise and haggling lies a quiet agreement. We all need something from someone. You stop at a cloth merchant's stall, your fingers drawn to the bolts of wool stacked neatly by color. The merchant is sharp-eyed and silver-tongued. "Soft as the queen's whisper," he says, draping a sample across your arm. You raise an eyebrow. "I doubt she whispers to peasants." He grins. "Ah, but she whispers about them." You chuckle, point to him. Salesmanship is an art form in itself. The cloth feels good, though, smooth and sturdy. You haggle politely, a ritual older than any written law. He names a price. You laugh. He pretends to be offended. You sigh dramatically. And just like that, the price falls to something almost reasonable. You pay, he bows, and both of you walk away thinking you've won. At the far edge of the square, a juggler performs for a small crowd. He tosses wooden balls in the air, then knives, then what looks suspiciously like his employer's patience. Children laugh, adults clap, and for a moment, all the toil and hunger of the day disappear. Entertainment is rare, precious, and slightly dangerous. Performers carry their own kind of power, to distract, to charm, to remind everyone that joy still exists between taxes and toil. The sun reaches its height now, the heat pressing against your shoulders. You find a bit of shade beneath a leaning timber post and watch life unfold. A dog gnaws on a bone near the butcher's stall. Two men argue over the fairness of a scale. A woman hums as she sells her honey, each jar glowing like trapped sunlight. And above it all, the bell tolls again, this time marking noon, a pause between sweat and supper. A quirky custom unfolds nearby. A group of women toss handfuls of flower petals onto the cobbles, muttering blessings for good harvests. Some believe the petals please the local saints. Others think it keeps rats away. No one can quite agree, but the square smells faintly of lavender for a while, and that seems like reason enough. Historians still debate whether these rituals were remnants of pagan traditions or just village improvisations dressed up as faith. Either way, they make the world smell better. You buy a small pouch of salt before leaving, costly, but worth every grain. Salt preserves food, seasons bread, and heals wounds. It's also an unspoken symbol of trust. Sharing salt with someone means peace, a truce, a promise of goodwill. You think of that as you tie the pouch to your belt. The road out of the market feels quieter after so much life. You look back once, the square shimmering with motion banners waving, merchants calling, people laughing through the dust. Beneath all the noise, there's something deeper, a pulse of survival wrapped in celebration. Every trade, every story, every shout is a reminder that this fragile system, half chaos, half choreography, keeps the world spinning beneath the crown and candlelight. You turn toward home, the pouch of salt bumping against your hip, the sound of the market still echoing faintly behind you. The air smells of bread, sweat, and the distant promise of rain. You smile to yourself, realizing that for all its noise and nonsense, the marketplace is where life breathes the loudest. And as you walk, you can't help but wonder, tomorrow, when the stalls are empty and the square falls silent, will the whispers linger like the smell of spice in the air? Probably. Because even when the candles burn low and the Lord sleeps soundly, it's the murmurs of the market, the quiet deals, and shared laughter that hold the real secrets of the world. You return from the market as the sun droops behind the trees, its light stretching long and golden across the rutted path. The day's noise fades, replaced by the faint hum of insects and the creak of wagon wheels. Ahead, the cottages huddle together like old friends in Avon, thatched and leaning as if sharing secrets. Smoke curls lazily from their chimneys, carrying the earthy perfume of peat and burning straw. This is the true medieval home, not the stone halls of kings, but the low, smoky heart of the countryside. You duck beneath the doorway of a peasant's house. The threshold is worn smooth by countless feet. Inside, the air feels close, warm, thick with a mingled sense of firewood, animals, and humanity. A single room holds everything: kitchen, bedroom, and sometimes stable. The floor is hard-packed dirt, occasionally strewn with rushes to mask the smell. In theory, the rushes keep things clean. In practice, they trap crumbs, fleas, and history. The hearth dominates the center of the room, glowing like a small sun. It's both kitchen and altar, the keeper of warmth and life. A cauldron hangs over the coals, its contents bubbling lazily. Tonight's meal is a thick stew, mostly cabbage and barley, perhaps a sliver of bacon if fortune smiled. You sit near the fire, feeling its heat lick against your chilled hands. The flicker of light paints everyone's faces in gold and shadow. The family moves quietly, but efficiently. The mother stirs the pot, humming a tune with no clear beginning. The father mends a harness by firelight, squinting at the leather with a patience born of repetition. Two children chase each other with wooden spoons until their mother's glance ends the game. Their laughter fades into soft giggles, then whispers. The air hums with domestic rhythm, the kind that makes a house feel alive even in its silence. A hen clucks softly in the corner. Yes, the chicken lives inside too, safe from foxes, though not from mischief. A goat occasionally shares this home as well, bleeding from a crude pen by the door. To modern eyes, it seems cramped, even desperate. But for them, warmth outweighs elegance, and safety trumps comfort. The walls may be wattle and daub, but they hold generations of breath and hope. You glance upward. The ceiling is low, the rafters hung with drying herb, sage, rosemary, lavender. Their scent weaves faintly through the smoky air. Bundles of onions dangle nearby, alongside a mysterious object that might be a charm against illness or simply something forgotten. A clay crucifix hangs crookedly above the hearth, its surface darkened by soot. Faith lives here too, in quiet gestures rather than grand displays. When the stew is ready, bowls are set with deliberate care. There's no table in the grand sense, just a wooden board laid across two barrels. Everyone eats together, dipping bread into the pot, taking turns in order of age. Silence reigns for a while, broken only by the scrape of spoons. You can feel the gratitude in it, not for abundance, but for enough. Conversation eventually stirs like the coals. They talk of weather, harvests, rumors from town. The father mentions hearing that the Lord's men are collecting grain early this year. The mother frowns, but says nothing. These are the conversations of survival, quiet, practical, edged with worry. You realize how every meal carries an invisible guest: uncertainty. When the fire begins to settle into embers, the house transforms. The light softens, the air cools. Bedding is unrolled straw mattresses covered in coarse linen, patched but clean. The family sleeps together in this single room, bodies close for warmth. Privacy is a luxury of castles. Here, life is shared down to the last heartbeat. The parents sleep near the hearth. The children curl up under a rough blanket, murmuring until dreams claim them. You lie awake a while, listening. Outside, the wind sighs through the cracks in the wall. A dog barks somewhere far off. The fire pops softly, sending a brief spray of sparks into the gloom. Every sound feels magnified, wrapped in shadow. This is the other side of medieval life, the stillness between labor and dawn, when time slows to a whisper. But not all homes are like this. Across the fields, the manor resents a different world entirely. Let's step there now. The manor house stands proud and angular, its stone walls gleaming faintly in the moonlight. Inside, torches burn along the corridor, smoke curling toward a beamed ceiling blackened from years of heat. The air smells different: earwax, meat, and wine instead of straw and soot. Yet beneath the surface, even this home breathes the same mixture of comfort and unease. In the great hall, servants move like shadows, clearing the remnants of supper. Bones and bread crusts scatter across the long table, surrounded by half-drained cups. The lady of the house stands nearby, offering polite words about tomorrow's guests, though her tone carries the weariness of someone who has said them too often. Upstairs, the chambers glow with candlelight. The flickering light turns the stone walls soft and uncertain. Tapestries hang thick with scenes of saints and battles, part decoration, part insulation. The bed itself is a masterpiece of wood and fabric, high-curtained, layered with furs. Yet even here, comfort demands constant tending. Servants warm the sheets with hot stones, check for drafts, chase away the night's chill. A maid kneels by the hearth, coaxing life into the fire. Her hands move quickly, silently. She knows every crack in the floor, every sound the house makes after dark. She's seen more of her master's home than he ever will, the hidden corners, the whispers between walls. Servants live in the seams of luxury, keeping it stitched together. You notice how the light touches everything unevenly. The Lord's silver goblet gleams, but the corners of the room remain in shadow. In those shadows, truth often hides. The laughter from the feast earlier has vanished, replaced by the quiet rustle of gowns, the scrape of boots on stone, the faint sighs of exhaustion. Wealth, it seems, doesn't silence fatigue, simply gilds it. In the lower quarters, the kitchen still hums. Pots hang above the open fire, their surfaces slick with years of smoke. The cook scolds a boy for burning bread while muttering about how nobles think fire listens to them. The boy grins sheepishly and continues scraping the blackened crust. Laughter returns for a heartbeat, warm as the oven's breath. Even in the Lord's house, life depends on these unrecorded hands. And yet, for all its grandeur, this place too is ruled by shadows. Secrets pass quietly between servants, who the Lord favors, what the steward hides, which letter arrived by night. Gossip is both weapon and defense, here soft-spoken, dangerous, necessary. Beneath candlelight, truth glows briefly, then vanishes. You walk through a side corridor. The stone feels cold even through your shoes. Behind one door, you hear a child crying softly, the Lord's youngest, perhaps afraid of the dark. Behind another, laughter too hushed to be innocent. The castle, like the cottage, is built on human needs: warmth, hunger, fear, desire. Only the walls differ. At last, the household quiets. The fire burns low. You step outside onto a narrow walkway overlooking the courtyard. The sky is deep and black, freckled with stars. Somewhere beyond those lights, peasants sleep in their huts, farmers guard their fires, and shepherds listen for wolves. The land feels vast, yet somehow small, tied together by invisible threads of labor, faith, and fatigue. A watchman trudges past, lantern in hand, his breath clouding in the night. "All's well," he murmurs, out of habit more than conviction. His voice echoes against the stone, then fades. You realize that whether in cottage or castle, people chase the same fragile sense of safety. Firelight, walls, rituals, all are defenses against the dark. You linger a moment longer, feeling the chill bite through your cloak. The wind carries faint sounds from the village dogs barking, doors creaking, someone laughing before sleep. The same world, seen from two homes, one built of wood and hope, the other of stone and duty, both alive with heat and shadow. As you turn to leave, you glance once more at the flickering windows of the manor. They shimmer like fireflies in the distance, bright and temporary. The same glow that warms can also consume. But for tonight at least, both peasants and nobles rest under the same uncertain stars, dreaming by the same fragile firelight. And so the night settles over the land, gentle and absolute. The homes breathe together, some in whispers, some in sighs, but all in rhythm with the turning world. Beneath the crown and candlelight, warmth, is never just warmth. It's survival disguised as comfort and hope hidden inside the shadows. The rooster crows before dawn again, but this time you wake not in the cottage, nor under a lurid ceiling of carved beams, but somewhere between the quiet corridor of trade. The air outside is brisk, cool with promise, smelling faintly of damp wool and iron. The market day has arrived, and like the tide, it draws everyone toward its current. You grab your worn satchel, the one patched 3 times and tied with a bit of leftover rope, and start walking toward the square. Your boots squelch through the mud, your breath puffing white in the air. The first sounds of morning are already rising, wagon wheels creaking, roosters echoing each other in uneven harmony, the thud of barrels being rolled onto carts. You hear a merchant cursing softly at a stubborn mule, followed by laughter from a milkmaid balancing her yoke. There's a strange beauty to the chaos. It's a symphony of labor, each sound a note in the song of survival. As you approach, the square opens before you like a stage. Color spills from every corner. Dyed cloths, heaps of onions, baskets of apples with the morning dew still clinging to their skins. A butcher sharpens his knife, the rasping sound sharp and steady. A baker fans the air above her loaves, proud as any artist showing off her latest masterpiece. The smell of roasted chestnuts and smoked fish wraps around you, irresistible and grounding. You find yourself drawn to a stall selling trinkets, combs carved from bone, pewter rings, and glass beads that catch the light like tiny drops of water. The merchant, an older man with more wrinkles than coins, grins. Straight from Venice, he claims. You raise an eyebrow. The beads are probably from York or maybe Bruges, but you nod anyway. The charm of the marketplace lies not in truth, but in performance. Everyone's both actor and audience here. A little further down, 2 monks stand beside a cart filled with parchment scrolls and small relics. Holy water in clay flasks, splinters of saintly wood, and locks of hair supposedly from martyrs. One monk chants softly, his voice lilting above the chatter, while the other takes donations with serene precision. Faith in the market is as much a commodity as fish or cloth. And though you might smirk at the notion of miracle dust, you still feel the tiny tug of belief. Just in case. You pass a group of children chasing each other between stalls, laughing. Their laughter mingles with the call of the fishmonger, fresh from the coast. 2 days dead, but still blessed by salt and wind. He's half joking, half earnest. Fish rarely make it inland fresh, unless you're near a river. Most are salted, dried, or pickled, flavors of endurance rather than delight. Still, the crowd gathers, coins clinking in cold fingers. Markets aren't just for buying and selling, they're the medieval newsfeed. Gossip travels faster than goods. You overhear whispers of a distant war, of a noble's daughter who ran off with a minstrel, of a comet seen blazing over the western hills. Historians still argue whether people of the time saw comets as omens or simply as strange sky fires. But either way, you can feel the undercurrent of superstition ripple through the crowd. Knowledge here is collective, uncertain, and always colored by awe. You wander toward the blacksmith's stall, where sparks leap like fireflies from the anvil. The smith wipes sweat from his brow, his arms glistening in the smoky light. He sells horseshoes, nails, and the occasional kitchen knife, each forged with the same care. You can hear the rhythm of his hammer, 3 strikes, then pause, then 2. It's not just work, it's heartbeat. Every clang echoes a promise of usefulness, of something lasting in a world that rarely allows permanence. A woman nearby sells herbs from a woven basket. Her eyes are sharp, her hands stained green from plants. She speaks softly, but with authority, offering mixtures for sleep, for love, for luck. 1 vial of dried leaves, she says, keeps nightmares away. You smile, but don't refuse. Even the most skeptical traveler learns not to tempt fate. People have long memories here, and so do their beliefs. Somewhere near the center, a group of traveling musicians begins to play. The sound cuts through the noise lute strings. A drum, a small flute. The melody is both sad and playful, like laughter after tears. A few people start to dance, clumsy but joyous. You join for a moment, tapping your foot, feeling your body loosen after hours of walking. The marketplace is as much about release as it is about routine. For a few breaths, even peasants can forget the taxes and the tithes and just move. The musicians finish, and the crowd claps. Someone tosses a coin, and the flutist bows dramatically. If only joy could be taxed, he jokes, and the crowd laughs, though not too loudly because joy, in a way, already is. Lunch arrives in smells before it arrives in words. Vendors roast meat on skewers, turning them slowly over coals. A woman ladles thick pottage into bowls. You buy one, its steam curling into the air, and sit on a stone step. The stew tastes of lentils, carrots, and salt, humble, hearty, grounding. Across from you, a young nobleman tries to haggle over a bolt of cloth, pretending he knows the price of anything. His servant rolls his eyes discreetly. You finish your meal and wipe your mouth with the back of your hand. Round you, trade continues. Wheels of cheese are weighed, bolts of wool measured, contracts whispered over cups of watered wine. Beneath the chatter, though, you sense something deeper. This is where the village breathes, where life circulates like blood. The market connects the manor to the field, the monastery to the cottage. Without it, the world would stop spinning. You decide to wander toward the edges, where the less glamorous stalls sit. Here, the air changes. The crowd thins. A man sells scraps of metal, another offers used tools, and a young girl hawks candles shaped like tiny saints. She smiles shyly as you pass, wax on her fingertips. You buy one. Knits uneven, clearly hand-molded, but when you hold it to the light, the face of the saint almost seems to glow. Maybe it's just the sun through thin wax. Maybe it's something else. You stop at the well in the square's center. The rope creaks as someone hauls up a bucket, water splashing over the sides. A small boy dips his hands in and drinks, eyes wide at the coldness. You follow his gaze upward. The sky is soft and gray now, clouds thickening. A merchant mutters that rain's coming. Another swears he can smell it before it hits. Medieval people often read the weather like scripture, interpreting the sky as both guide and judge. Science and superstition blur easily when your survival depends on both. You linger until the first drops fall. They patter softly on the canvas awnings, sending people scurrying to cover their goods. The smell of wet earth mixes with the sharper scent of iron and smoke. The square becomes a mosaic of movement, people folding cloths, tying ropes, laughing as they race for shelter. You find refuge beneath a wooden awning beside a tanner's stall. The man offers you a grin and a strip of leather to fidget with while you wait. When the rain passes, the square glows, unumity, but alive. The sunlight returns like forgiveness, glinting off puddles where children splash. The merchants reopen their stalls, unbothered. This is routine. Life here doesn't pause for discomfort. It dances around it. You walk once more through the heart of the market, slower now, noticing details you missed earlier. The faint shimmer of beeswax candles in a basket. The soft coo of a pigeon trapped under a cartwheel until a girl sets it free. The smell of yeast rising from a baker's oven somewhere nearby. Everything here feels temporary, yet eternal, as if the square has always existed and always will, changing faces, but not rhythm. A peculiar man catches your attention, a wandering scholar, perhaps. His cloak is dusty, his shoes worn, but his eyes gleam with purpose. He's preaching softly to anyone who'll listen about the nature of stars, claiming they move because of divine harmonies. Every planet sings, he says, and if you could hear it, you'd never speak again. People smile politely, but drift away. Still, you linger a moment, curious. Historians still argue whether medieval thinkers truly believed in such music of the spheres, or used it as metaphor. Either way, it's strangely comforting to think the universe hums a lullaby you can't quite hear. The day fades toward evening again. The merchants begin to pack, tying their wares with practiced efficiency. You help an old woman load her baskets of herbs onto a cart. She thanks you with a smile and presses a sprig of lavender into your hand. "For peace," she says. The scent follows you as you walk away, sweet and grounding. By the time you reach the edge of the square, the sun dips low, brushing the rooftops with orange light. You look back one last time. The market, once noisy and chaotic, now quiets into gentle order. Empty stalls stand like bones of a great creature resting after a long day. The ground is littered with straw, a few lost buttons, and the smell of 1,000 stories exchanged. You turn toward the road again, lavender in your pocket, the faint sound of a lute fading behind you. Beneath the crown and candlelight, the marketplace is not merely a place of trade, it's where the pulse of medieval life beats the loudest. Here, amid the noise, the smells, and the small bargains, you glimpse the delicate machinery that keeps the world turning, hands, hopes, and the quiet miracle of human exchange. The path home stretches long and uneven beneath your feet, still damp from the afternoon rain. You can feel the mud tugging at your boots, and the scent of wet hay clings to your clothes. Evening gathers slowly around the edges of the horizon, that soft hour when the sky can't decide between gold and gray. You pass a row of cottages, their windows glowing faintly, each one a pocket of warmth in the cooling dusk. Smoke rises in thin spirals, and the sound of low conversation drifts from open doors. This is the hour of meals, of firelight, smells, and stories. Your stomach growls. You've walked since the market, the lavender sprig still tucked safely in your pouch, its scent mingling with the day's dust. Ahead, the road forks. One path leads to the manor, the other to a tavern whose door you can already hear creaking open and shut, with laughter spilling out like spilled ale. Tonight, curiosity wins. You head toward the tavern. The tavern's sign swings lazily on its china-crude painting of a tankard and a crown, though neither looked particularly trustworthy. You push open the door and step inside. Warmth hits you instantly, the kind that smells of spilled drink, roasting meat, and wet wool. Candles flicker in their holders, some barely hanging on to their last inch of wick. The air hums with conversation, the rise and fall of voices like waves on a restless shore. You find a spot near the wall, a bench polished smooth by generations of weary travelers. The tavern keeper, a woman with forearms strong enough to wrestle barrels, slides a wooden cup toward you. "Ale?" she asks, and you nod. It's not exactly a question. The cup arrives half full, the foam thick and bitter. You take a sip. It's warm, but you don't mind. It tastes like earth and barley and the faintest ghost of happiness. Around you, the evening unfolds. A man in a faded red cloak strums a lute, plucking out a melody that sounds suspiciously like 3 other songs combined. A group of laborers at a nearby table argue cheerfully about whose ox pulled more grain today. One of them slaps the table, nearly spilling his drink, and the laughter that follows feels like thunder wrapped in velvet. A serving girl passes with a platter of stew, and you catch the scent: onions, beans, and something meaty that might once have been rabbit. She grins when she sees you eyeing it. "2 pennies, she says. You hand over the coins, and soon the bowl is in your hands, hot and heavy. The stew isn't fancy, but it fills you, warmth spreading through your chest as you eat. This tavern is no castle hall, yet in some ways it's grander. Everyone here shares the same space: farmers, tinkers, a weary pilgrim or two, maybe even a runaway monk if you look closely enough. For a few hours, class softens. Rank dissolves into laughter and spilled ale. The noble's coin and the peasant's coin clink the same when they hit the table. At the far corner, a storyteller begins his tale. He stands by the hearth, the firelight painting his face in amber tones. "Did you hear," he starts, "about the knight who sold his shadow to the devil for a horse that could outrun the wind?" The room quiets. Even the lute stills. You lean forward, the rhythm of his voice catching you like a spell. His story winds through love, greed, and redemption, with just enough absurdity to make everyone laugh in relief at the end. Storytelling, you realize, is as vital as bread here. It keeps minds alive when bodies are tired. It turns fear into fable, grief into rhythm. Historians still argue whether these tavern tales were the origins of folklore or just echoes of it, but it hardly matters. What's certain is that truth has always traveled better, wrapped in a good story. As the night deepens, the air thickens with heat and sound. Someone starts singing a rough voice, joined quickly by others. The lyrics are bawdy enough to make you laugh, but not obscene enough to make the priest, sitting glumly in the corner, leave. He only shakes his head, pretending not to know the words. The song turns to another, then another, until the tavern feels like it's breathing in unison. You notice small details between the verses, a couple exchanging glances near the back, a boy sweeping crumbs underfoot to earn his supper, a merchant tracing the rim of his cup as if in thought. Each one has a story, some louder than others. And beneath it, all the steady crackle of the fire, the scent of wax melting down to stubs, the faint chills sneaking through the door whenever it opens. A man beside you leans in. You travel. He asks, his accent thick with the local hills. You nod. He grins, missing 2 teeth. Then you'll know this one. He launches into a story about a bridge that demands a song as payment from anyone crossing it. You listen, smiling. He swears it's true. And maybe, in this light, it is. The line between myth and life blurs easily after 2 cups of ale. You can't help but think of how much this tavern resembles a small kingdom. The keeper is its queen. The serving girls, her ministers. The drunkards, her knights. Every night, this wooden room becomes a world fragile, temporary, but utterly alive. Outside, the wind howls faintly, but inside, laughter drowns it out. The stew bowl empties. The candle beside you burns low, and the musician starts again, this time slower, softer. His fingers find a melancholy tune that hushes the room. Even the priest looks up, his expression gentler now. The song tells of a lost sailor who finds home in a dream, and though none here have ever seen the sea, they all listen as if they have. When the song ends, the silence feels sacred. Then someone claps, and the spell breaks. Cups raise again. Life resumes. You sip the last of your ale, now lukewarm, and let it sit on your tongue. It's not about taste anymore. It's about presence, being part of this fleeting communion of strangers. The tavern keeper starts snuffing candles one by one, a quiet signal. The crowd begins to thin. Some leave singing, others leaning on each other for balance. You stand, stretch, and nod a quiet thanks to the keeper. She returns it with a weary smile that somehow feels like a benediction. Outside, the night wraps around you. The air is colder now, sharper. Stars blink above, faint but patient. The road glows faintly under moonlight, slick from the earlier rain. Behind you, the tavern door closes, muting the laughter inside. You stand there a moment, listening to the muffled hum through the wood, then start walking. The village lies quiet now, only the occasional flicker of light through shuttered windows. You pass by one where you glimpse a mother rocking her baby, singing softly a lullaby older than memory. The tune drifts through the stillness like smoke. You pause to listen, not wanting to interrupt. Her voice fades as you move on, replaced by the steady rhythm of your steps. You reach a small bridge that crosses the creek. The water below gleams faintly, catching moonlight like silver threads. You lean against the railing, watching ripples move under the surface. The night insects hum, and somewhere distant, a wolf calls. Not close enough to fear, just close enough to remind you that this world belongs to more than people. You breathe deeply. The air tastes of damp wood, ash, and something faintly sweet. Maybe honey, maybe the lingering smoke from someone's chimney. You think of all the fires burning right now across the valley, some grand, some humble, each one a center of life. And though no one will ever see them all at once, together they weave a map of existence beneath the same indifferent stars. A stray dog trots by, tail wagging cautiously. You crouch, extend a hand, and it sniffs your fingers before continuing on its mysterious errand. You smile. In a place where survival leaves little room for sentiment, such small gestures feel monumental. You walk the rest of the way home slowly. The night hums softly around youth. The rustle of leaves, the whisper of the wind through thatched roofs, the faint creak of distant shutters. Each sound feels like a heartbeat of the land itself. When you finally reach your door, you pause, hand on the latch, looking once more at the sky. The moon hangs heavy and pale, its light spreading like spilled milk across the fields. Somewhere in the distance, a faint note of music lingers, the last echo from the tavern. Perhaps, you think of the storyteller, the songs, the laughter. Beneath the crown and candlelight. The tavern isn't just a place to drink, it's a mirror of the world itself, flawed, fleeting, and full of strange beauty. You step inside, the door closing softly behind you. The hearth glows dimly, a few coals still alive. You stir them back to flame, set the lavender sprig on the mantel, and sink onto your straw mattress. Your eyes grow heavy as warmth seeps back into your bones. The fire crackles, the night deepens, and somewhere beyond the walls, the tavern laughter fades into memory. You smile faintly as sleep begins to pull you under. Tomorrow, the same routines will return: work, bread, chores. But for tonight, you've seen the world through firelight and ale foam. And that, in its own quiet way, feels like grace. The morning after feels like a whisper wrapped in fog. The tavern laughter has dissolved into memory, leaving behind the faint ache of sleeplessness and a mild regret from the second cup of ale. But today, the air carries a different rhythm, a hum of preparation. It's the feast day of St. Leonard, patron of prisoners and lost causes, and the village stirs early. By midday, the narrow lanes bloom with sound. Women gossiping by wells, the sharp ring of knives on wooden boards, and somewhere a bell tolling with that peculiar mix of joy and duty. Smoke curls from kitchen fires, chickens complain. A dog circles beneath the tables, hoping for what every dog in history has hoped for: a scrap of meat dropped by an absent-minded cook. You find yourself invited to supper at the manor. Not by nobility's will, of course, but as part of the crowd of tradesmen, field hands, and neighbors summoned for the communal feast. These occasions blurred class lines slightly, just slightly enough for everyone to taste something finer than usual. The manor hall looms ahead, its timber bones creaking softly. Inside, light struggles to compete with shadow. Long tables stretch like wooden rivers, their surfaces scarred from years of knives, spilled wine, and the weight of countless elbows. Candles, set in thick pools of wax, cast trembling halos across bread loaves and pitchers of ale. The smell is a kingdom in itself: roasted pork, baked apples, cloves, onions, caramelizing in their own sweetness. The air feels alive, layered with laughter and the clang of serving spoons. You take a seat near the lower end of the table among the Millers and Coopers. Higher up sit the reeve, the steward, and the Lord's own family, each chair spaced as precisely as a prayer. When the meal begins, there is no music at first, only the sound of hunger. Bread passes from hand to hand, rough brown loaves torn open with bare fingers. A jug of ale makes its slow pilgrimage down the table, leaving a trail of foam and flushed cheeks. A woman beside you whispers a grace, her voice barely audible over the chatter. Then laughter breaks through, and the hall fills again with the sound of life. The Lord enters late, draped in wool, lined with fur. He nods once, no speech, no preamble. He sits, and that alone is enough to begin the next course. Servants appear like shadows, carrying trenchers heavy with meat, roasted capons, salted fish, venison pie. They move quietly, eyes lowered, steps rehearsed. Behind them, A boy no older than 12 follows with a pitcher, refilling cups before they're empty. Under the table, the world tells another story. Bare feet shift against rushes strewn to soak up spills. A small dog curls beneath a bench, eyeing fallen crumbs. Someone's boot nudges yours an accident. Perhaps, or not. Above, conversation flows about harvest yields and border disputes. Below, small rebellions and flirtations unfold unseen. You glance toward the upper table, where the Lord's daughter sits, perhaps 17, her dress the color of late summer wheat. Her smile never quite reaches her eyes. To her right, a minor knight brags about his last hunt, gesturing with a bone as though wielding a sword. She nods politely, eyes drifting toward the candle flame as if listening to something only she can hear. A musician strikes up a lute. The hall softens, conversation folding itself around the melody. The tune is old, a ballad of loyalty and lost, and for a moment, the clatter subsides. The music seeps into corners, touches even the weary servants as they pass. You find yourself tapping the rhythm against the rim of your cup. The feast moves in waves. Trenchers are replaced with sweets, honey cakes, almonds, and fruit preserved in syrup. The sweetness feels almost divine after the salt and fat. Someone tells a joke about a monk, a fish, and a bishop's missing boots. Laughter erupts, echoing up into the beams. The dog barks as if to join in. Then, without ceremony, the prayers return. The Lord raises his hand, and a hush falls. A short blessing thanking God, the saints, and the mercy of good harvest, and then, like a tide receding, the sound returns. Yet beneath the brightness of candles, another rhythm beats quietly. The subtle art of watching and being watched. Every gesture carries meaning here. Who eats with which hand? Who offers bread before taking it? Who looks away when someone of higher station speaks? Even the silence has its etiquette. A young servant spills a cup. The ale splashes across the table, dripping down into someone's lap. The room stills for a heartbeat. The Lord looks up, eyes cool and unreadable. The servant freezes, face pale as tallow. Then, after a long pause, the Lord waves a hand. "Be careful next time," he says, voice even. The servant bows deeply, nearly trembling with relief. The hall exhales again. In a world where power breathes down your neck like winter wind, mercy when it appears as its own kind of spectacle. As the night wears on, the candles burn lower. Shadows stretch longer, faces blur into gold and darkness. The musician switches to faster tunes. Someone starts clapping, and a few brave souls rise to dance. The steps are simple half-hops, small turns, but the joy is pure. Even the reeve cracks a smile. At your end of the table, talk drifts toward small hopes. The coming lambing season, the rumor of a fair in a nearby town, the possibility that the mill's broken wheel might finally be replaced. Each story begins ordinary, but under ale and candlelight, even small dreams shimmer. And then, as happens often in such halls, the laughter softens into reflection. A mason across from you, his hands scarred from stone, raises his cup. "To work," he says. "To the blisters that feed us," another adds, "and to the saints who don't laugh when we curse them." The toast spreads, uneven but sincere. You raise your cup, the ale glowing like amber in the light. It's easy to forget, amid the spectacle of kings and crusades, that this ordinary supper's what truly sustained the medieval world. A network of shared hunger and momentary reprieve. Food not as indulgence, but as communion. Each loaf of bread a fragile bridge between seasons, between people. As the final crumbs disappear, the steward stands. "The hall thanks you," he announces. His tone is practiced, formal, yet somehow weary. The crowd rises slowly, benches scraping across stone. The candles are shorter now, their smoke curling upward like exhausted prayers. Outside, the night is thick and cool. You can still hear faint laughter behind the closed doors. The feast lingers in the air-roast wax, warmth and beneath it. Something quieter, that strange, timeless ache of knowing the moment is already passing. You walk a little way from the manor, down a slope where the grass glitters with dew. From here, you can see the valley dotted with faint lights, the cottages, the tavern, the chapel lamp still burning near the gate. Each glow, a reminder that life, in all its forms, continues beyond the grand tables. You sit for a while, letting the air wash over you. The feast felt like another world, but out here, the earth's pulse is steadier. An owl calls from the trees. Somewhere, a cartwheel creaks as a late traveler passes. You pull your cloak tighter. In your mind, you replay the feast, not from above the table, but beneath it. The brush of feet. The shifting rushes, the small exchanges no one notices. That's where the real life breathes under. The candlelight table, hidden, yet enduring. Because that's the truth of medieval existence, so much of it happened in the margins. In glances, gestures, and moments unrecorded. History remembers kings and battles, but it forgets the woman who wiped spilled ale from her lap and smiled anyway, or the servant who dared to laugh after the Lord looked away. The night deepens. The stars spill more brightly now, the moon caught like a coin in a basin of clouds. You think of how many meals have ended like this, some in silence, some in song. The candle may go out, but the warmth it leaves behind lingers, invisible yet real. You rise, brushing dew from your hands. The path ahead gleams faintly, lined with stones worn smooth by centuries of footsteps. Somewhere down there, another table waits simpler perhaps, but no less sacred. A pot bubbling, a crust of bread cooling, a family settling in. And so you walk again, the memory of candlelight still flickering in your mind. Each step feels lighter now, as though the feast's warmth has followed you out into the night. In the distance, a bell rings once slow, deliberate. The day's end, the world's quiet turning. You take one last look back at the manor's glow before it fades behind the hill. For all its pageantry, the candlelight dinner was never about luxury. It was about presence, about people gathered in fragile light, daring to believe that warmth and food could hold back the dark, if only for a while. The dawn breaks slowly, as if reluctant to rise over the fields that still hold the breath of last night's feast. A faint mist drifts across the meadows, carrying the scent of damp hay, smoke, and something older, the earthy memory of toil. You walk along the narrow track, leading away from the manor, boots brushing dew from the grass. The village stirs again, and you realize how even silence seems to have a rhythm here. The first sound you catch is the rhythmic clack of a mill wheel turning downstream. Water splashes against wood, steady as a heartbeat. The miller's house sits beside it, puffing a small cloud of smoke into the crisp air. You pass it, feeling the vibration underfoot, a subtle reminder that industry, however primitive, really sleeps. The mill is more than machinery. It's a social pulse. Everyone owes the miller something, and no grain becomes bread without his blessing or his toll. The wind changes direction, carrying laughter from the washing stones near the riverbank. A handful of women scrub linen against flat rocks, chatting between splashes. They speak of neighbors' mischief, of a midwife's lateness, of the peddler who sold them imported combs that looked suspiciously local. You linger at a distance, hearing their voices rise and fall like a familiar melody. Gossip in this world is more than idle chatter, it's survival. Historians still argue whether medieval gossip counted as resistance or routine. You recall softly, smiling. But when every bit of information travels slower than a donkey, words become their own kind of power. The baker's debt, the priest's secret visit, the Lord's illegitimate son, everything is carried on the wind. Repeated, reshaped, refined. One of the women stands and stretches, wringing out a tunic with strength honed by work. The wind hears more than priests do. She says to no one in particular. They laugh. Somewhere in the distance, a rooster crows late, embarrassed perhaps that the world woke before him. You move on. The road passes between hedges alive with birdsong. A man approaches a tinker, his cart clattering with pots, pans, and promises. His smile is weathered but practiced. "Mending today?" he asks. You shake your head, and he grins anyway, tipping an invisible hat before continuing. Travelers like him are the arteries of the age, carrying not just goods, but stories. He'll stop at a dozen hamlets before sunset, trading repairs for bread or news. By the week's end, he'll know who's quarreling, who's courting, who's sick, and who's pretending not to be. The church might guard souls, the Lord might guard land, but the tinker guards truth, in fragments and whispers. A gust of wind picks up again, and you can almost feel the voices it carries. The market cries, the tolling of bells, the low murmur of monks in morning prayer. Each sound folds into another until they become one great tapestry of living noise. By midday, the village square is awake. Merchants shout over each other, chickens scatter, and the smith's hammer rings out like punctuation in a crowded sentence. You wander among the stalls, bolts of rough cloth, honey jars, fish packed in salt. A boy tries to sell you a wooden whistle. Keeps evil spirits away, he insists solemnly. You buy it, mostly for the story it will one day tell. You pause by the well. Two men argue over whose turn it is to fetch for the parish kitchen. Nearby, a young girl balances a jug on her head, walking as gracefully as a queen. The world around you feels both chaotic and intimate, loud, alive, and endlessly observant. No secret stays hidden long, yet everyone keeps pretending they can. An old man seated by the well offers a knowing look. "You hear much if you say little," he murmurs. You nod. Wisdom in these parts often wears rags and speaks softly. As you turn to leave the market, a commotion stirs near the chapel. People gather around a monk holding a parchment. He reads aloud slowly, dramatically, the decree of the local bishop about new tithes. The crowd murmurs. Some faces stay blank, others tighten. Taxes on grain, taxes on wool, taxes on breathing it, all feels the same. The wind, waiting nearby like a messenger, will soon carry every word of this reading to the next parish before nightfall. The monk rolls the parchment and steps back, his voice fading into the buzz of discontent. Historians still argue whether peasants truly understood these decrees. You think, watching the expressions flicker like candlelight. But they understand enough. Every rise in tax means more hours bent over soil, more hunger shared at the table. Knowledge doesn't need letters, it only needs memory. The wind shifts again, colder this time, curling through the alleyways. You follow it toward the edge of the village, where a thatched roof leans precariously over a cobbler's workshop. Inside, the smell of leather and oil greets you. The cobbler hums as he works, tapping nails into a sole. Bad news spreads quick, he says without looking up. Good news, though it limps. You laugh quietly. He's right. He gestures with his hammer toward the door. The wind carried word this morning. The Lord's cousin got caught in a storm near the coast, lost half his shipment of wine. His tone suggests that the tragedy feels rather distant, perhaps even deserved. Guess the saints like sobriety better than sailors, he mutters. You leave him to his rhythm, stepping back into the afternoon. The clouds drift low now, heavy with unfallen rain. You can smell it in the air, sharp, clean, promising. The sound of the wind becomes stronger as it threads through trees, that same invisible courier of the world's whispers. You climb a small rise overlooking the fields. From here, you can see nearly everything. Cottages crouched like sleeping animals. The thin line of smoke from the smithy, the shimmer of the river as it curves toward the forest. Every life, every secret, feels contained in that single view. The wind brushes against your face, carrying fragments of words you can't quite catch. For a moment, it almost feels alive, like an unseen archivist, preserving what the chroniclers never will. Below, a shepherd calls to his flock, his voice thin but sure. A child runs after a goose, shrieking with laughter. A bell rings again in the distance, maybe the monastery's call to none. Even that sound seems to ride the air with intent, mingling prayer and routine. It's strange how every sound tells a story. You recall a fringe tidbit you once heard. In some villages, people claimed they could read the wind like scripture, listening for omens. They'd say if the wind blew west on a Sunday, the week would bring mischief. If east, a birth or a storm. No science supports it, but you can't deny the charm of such faith-seeing meaning in every breeze. You sit for a while, listening. The world moves, but softly. The faint clatter of a cart, the sigh of leaves, the distant echo of laughter, all of it woven into one unbroken sound. You realize how many voices have touched this same air. Kings shouting orders, farmers singing to oxen, mothers soothing children to sleep. The wind remembers them all, even when parchment forgets. Evening begins its descent. The air cools, rich with the scent of wet grass and hearth smoke. You walk back toward the cottages. Lamps flicker to life one by one, their glow trembling against the twilight. A woman stands by her door, shaking crumbs from a cloth into the dusk. "Feed the spirits," she says when she sees you watching. Or they'll whistle through the roof. Another secret carried by the wind. As darkness settles, the village exhales. The noises dim, the fires soften, and the breeze turns gentle, again no longer the carrier of gossip, but of dreams. You feel it brush past your cheek, as if whispering, "Remember?" You look up. The clouds part just enough to reveal a pale sliver of moon. It seems to hover like a guardian over the fields. Somewhere beyond, the manor windows glint faintly, their candlelight trembling like old thoughts. Every layer of this world, from feast to field, from prayer to rumor, depends on the unseen currents that link them. The wind doesn't just move air, it moves meaning. It ties together those who will never meet, those who speak different tongues, those who share the same uncertain hope that someone, somewhere, might listen. You inhale deeply, the scent of peat and rain mixing on your tongue. The taste of history, humble and infinite. The wind sighs once more across the valley, gathering the day's stories, the laughter at the washed stones, the curse of the cobbler, the monk's decree, the child's whistle, the shepherd's song. It carries them beyond the horizon, where another village waits, unaware that its tomorrow has already been whispered to the breeze. As you stand there, cloak fluttering lightly, you understand something the chroniclers never wrote down, that in the medieval world, secrets didn't need paper. They needed air. And so, beneath the crown and candlelight, beneath the noise and prayer, everything that mattered was carried softly, endlessly, by the wind. The final evening descends slowly, folding the village in velvet shadows. You walk past cottages, the soft glow of hearths flickering through their windows like watchful eyes. A light mist curls around the chimneys, carrying the faint scent of burning wood and drying laundry. It's that delicate hour when the day exhales, neither awake nor fully asleep, perfect for noticing. Secrets the sun could never reveal. You pause near the edge of the village where a narrow lane opens toward the forest. The scent of pine drifts on the cool air, mingling with the faint tang of wet earth. Somewhere, an owl hoots, a sound both familiar and mysterious, reminding you that life extends beyond the village's borders. You step lightly, careful not to startle a fox or a night bird. Each step feels sacred, each sound amplified in the hush of night. The villagers are settling. Children, cheeks still flushed from play, are tucked into beds lined with straw. Women finish chores and smooth aprons, whispering prayers as they stoke fires. Men sit outside the barns, smoking pipes or quietly mending tools. Historians still argue whether such domestic rhythms were as orderly as records suggest, whether chaos and improvisation ruled more often. But either way, there is a rhythm to evening that everyone senses, A faint sound of movement draws your attention to a small alley between two cottages. There, an elderly man adjusts the latch on his door, whispering to a young boy who leans close. You can't catch the words, but the intent is clear: secrets being passed down. Advice carried in hushed tones, the kind that survives generations without ever appearing in a scroll or ledger. Even in the simplest whispers, the weight of knowledge is immense. Turning further into the village center, you notice the chapel windows glowing warmly. The priest is walking to the door, holding a lantern. You can see the outline of small children following him, curious and obedient, their eyes reflecting candlelight like tiny moons. Within, a final evening prayer begins, soft enough not to disturb the nearby cottages, yet loud enough to remind the world of its presence. Faith here is intimate, personal, yet displayed in a communal rhythm that cannot be ignored. From the shadows, a traveling peddler passes, cloaked and silent, carrying a pack slung over one shoulder. You almost mistake him for a wandering spirit. The wind shifts, catching a loose strap of his pack, making it flap softly. You realize he is both witness and participant, hearing stories and carrying them elsewhere, just as you've seen happen countless times before. Fringe tales of wandering merchants say they know who will marry whom, who will fall ill, and which barn will catch fire first. Perhaps exaggeration, perhaps truth. There is a logic in wandering ears. Nearby, the blacksmith's fire glows faintly through his open door. You can see his silhouette hammering with precise, rhythmic movements. Sparks leap into the night like captured stars, scattering briefly before fading. His work continues even in darkness, a quiet testament to perseverance. The smell of hot iron and coal drifts out, mixing with the earthy aroma of the evening. You realize that in these small acts, the hammering, the sweeping, the closing of shutters, lies the invisible scaffolding of medieval life. Without them, the village could not breathe, could not exist. You wander back toward the well, now a place of soft reflection rather than bustling gossip. The water glimmers faintly in the moonlight, a mirror for the night sky. You drop a coin in absent-mindedly, listening to the hollow plunk echoing back. Somewhere, a stray dog pads silently by, brushing against the edge of your cloak. Its presence is a reminder of all the lives that occupy the margins, unseen yet integral to the rhythm of daily life. Above, stars scatter themselves across the sky. The moon casts a gentle silver glow over rooftops and fields. You pause to breathe, taking in the quiet grandeur of the night. Even the wind, now gentler, carries whispers, the echo of last week's market, the scent of herbs from a distant cottage, the fading laughter from the tavern. Every sound, every breath of air carries meaning. Historians still debate whether medieval people consciously interpreted the natural world for omens, or whether these stories evolved only after centuries of retelling. But standing here, you feel the weight of centuries of observation pressing gently against your awareness. A soft rustling draws your gaze to a small window where a young girl is arranging candles in a simple pattern, likely for the saints. Her hands are careful, her expression solemn. There is a magic in watching someone focus entirely on small, meaningful acts, unnoticed by history, but vital to the heartbeat of daily existence. You are reminded that secrets are not always hidden in shadows. Sometimes they lie in light and diligence, small rituals that endure quietly. From a distance, you hear a lute being tuned, its soft hum vibrating faintly in the night air. The sound is carried on the wind, mingling with the distant clatter of a cart on the cobblestones. A traveling musician, perhaps preparing for a performance at dawn or sharing a simple melody with a neighbor. Music, like stories, spreads invisibly, binding people together across space and time. Even the humblest tune carries wisdom, memory, and joy. You find yourself returning once more to the outskirts of the village, where the wind plays among the trees. A small boy stands with a lantern, tracing patterns in the dirt as he waits for his father. You watch silently, feeling the enormity of continuity, the passing down of roles, duties, and secrets from one generation to the next. In every glance, every whisper, every small exchange, the village's history pulses quietly. You walk along the familiar path toward your own door. The sky deepens into indigo, dotted with stars that feel close enough to touch. The faint glow of cottages, the smell of baked bread, the last murmurs of evening prayer all fold into a symphony of small, meaningful moments. Life continues in layers, some visible, some hidden, all interwoven. As you enter your room, the lavender sprig from the market rests on the windowsill, still faintly perfuming the air. You light a small candle, the flame trembling like a heartbeat, and watch the shadows dance along the walls. Every creak of the floorboards, every sigh of the wind through the roof feels alive. Secrets remain, waiting patiently in corners, whispered through candlelight, carried on the night air. You settle onto your bed, feeling the day's rhythm fading into calm. Your eyes grow heavy as the candle sputters, smoke curling toward the ceiling. You think of the market, the tavern, the manor, the wind, the fire, and the whispers of life lived fully, quietly and invisibly, beneath crowns and candles alike. The medieval world may have been harsh, but it was also intimate, rich with the hidden lives of those who never made it into the chronicles, yet shaped history nonetheless. Outside, the night holds its breath. Somewhere, a dog curls up. A child murmurs a dream. The wind rustles leaves in agreement. You exhale, letting the quiet settle over you, tracing every story, every secret carried through the day. The candle guttering, the soft hum of the evening, and the lingering scent of lavender all tell you one final thing, that beneath every grand event lies the invisible work of ordinary people, and their whispers endure long after crowns and battles fade. You close your eyes, letting sleep claim you. Dreams begin to weave themselves, light and dark, ordinary and strange, carrying every shadow and spark of the day forward. You feel the pulse of the village, the rhythm of market and manor, the song of wind and flame, all converging in the tender hush of night. The secrets of daily life, preserved not in books, but in breaths and glances, lull you gently toward the world beyond waking.